We're about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day on this Friday. Scarlet Fu and Sonali Basak here. And of course, here to help us take you through the closing bell, we've got a global simulcast. And that means Carol Massar and David Gura in for Tim Stanovic joining us. And of course, by doing so, we bring together everyone, Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio, and our YouTube audiences as we look at what's going on here. And Carol, in the final minutes before the closing bell, as Steve Sosnick was just telling us moments ago, it's a change from what we used to see, which is a bit of a rally into the close. Now we kind of have these swoons into the close.
Yeah, absolutely. And, swoon is the right word for the week. I'm just thinking of the NASDAQ 100. It's down, about 4% this week. So definitely we talked, right, David, about this rotation out of some of these big cap tech names. We definitely saw it in the trade overall this week.
Yeah, Carol, just picking up on that, I mean, this has been an exhausting week. We've spent a lot of time talking about that over the course of the show today. But, we started with new comments from the Federal Reserve Chair. We saw, obviously, former President Trump on stage in Milwaukee talking about his plans for a second term. We saw the kind of resurgence as a result of that of the so-called Trump trade. So a lot has happened here over the course of the week. And I'm particularly interested in sort of what we've seen in technology stocks in these last couple of days.
Last couple of days, and this week to end the week, really, this risk-off tone is pretty incredible. And we were trying to look across the markets for a haven bid, and we could not find one, guys. I mean, maybe a little bit in the dollar. You see Bitcoin rising. Gold is down 1.9%. Even the 2-year is down. There is some serious risk-off attitudes going into this weekend. Political uncertainty and, of course, earnings uncertainty as well into next week.
Oh, Sonali, you just rolled your eyes at me when I mentioned Bitcoin earlier. We do have healthcare and utilities somewhat higher, so I guess that could be a kind of a place to find some safety. We know that those are dividend payers as well, so that provides some comfort. But look at that closing shot of the market right now. You have a lot of red arrows and pretty big red arrows too when it comes to Dow off by 0.9%, 40,290. The S&P 500 losing 0.7% at 5505, and the Nasdaq lower by 0.8% at 17,726. Worth pointing out as well that the Russell 2000 did finish lower on the day, but its decline is less than its big cap brethren. So off by 0.6%. Perhaps because of that, the rotation is still kind of on.
Kinda. We shall see. But yeah, kind of interesting to see how it ended up. I'm going to go back to the big caps for a moment and just the S&P 500 today. And Sonali had most names in the index lower, about 367, 134 actually gaining some ground today, 2 unchanged.
And if you take a look at sectors here, it was pretty broad-based. You did have a little bit of green on the screen as Scarlett was talking about healthcare stocks, utility stocks a little higher on the day, but really that was on the back of some earnings that we saw out of the healthcare sector that helped drag that part of the index higher. But energy, the biggest loser here at 1.3% out of the sectors, is pretty stunning when you have a week where energy was the biggest gainer in the middle of what was, frankly, a Trump trade.
Yeah, that was a lot of red that I'm looking at the screen right there for those of you who are listening on radio. Let's get to some of the individual gainers, if I may. Starbucks, right? We had a headline just about 2:40 Wall Street time today. You've got activist investor Elliott taking a sizable stake in the company, pushing to find ways to boost the stock prices, come from the Wall Street Journal, citing folks familiar. So you saw a pop in shares of Starbucks up almost 7% in today's trade. A top gainer moving along to one that really was a standout in both the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100, talking about Intuitive Surgical, tickers ISRG, finishing the day near its highs, up 9.4%, initiated with an outperform and $21 price target over at Wedbush, which said the shares seem undervalued. So we did see certainly a big move. Oh, forgive me. That was Canadian Goose. Oh, mixing up my notes. Hang on.
Take your time. It's Friday.
That's because I added Starbucks. Hitting a record. Company second quarter adjusted earnings per share coming ahead of consensus estimates. Whew. Piper Sandler said this was an all-around positive update. We're talking Intuitive Surgical. Piper Sandler, Leerink, and Jefferies all raising their price target. Now to Canada Goose, up 2.5%. This one rallying after it was initiated with an outperform recommendation and a $21 a share price target over at Wedbush, which said the shares seem undervalued, which makes sense because the stock closed at $12.20 a share. And one more, Hawaiian Electric had to point this out, up about 37%. It's among the companies that have tentatively agreed to pay more than $4 billion to resolve hundreds of lawsuits over the wildfires that ripped through Maui last year. This is according to people familiar. So we saw, certainly, David, people moving into that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about decliners. You got to mention CrowdStrike. Obviously, this is a huge story today, one that we all woke up to here on the East Coast in New York. The cybersecurity security company suffering this failure that affected so many companies around the world. We saw that steep decline there. Mandeep Singh saying this is a company that has done so well for so long. It's just a total surprise, and we'll see what happens in the coming days as now the specter of potential lawsuits comes into play here. Who's going to have to pay the bills for what's happened here at airports and banks, all kinds of businesses all over the world. Comerica, that Dallas-based bank, reported earnings. Its outlook worse than Wall Street expected. We saw that bank shares decline as well. It's also being removed from a Treasury program it had a contract with, a deal with, and not being asked to rebid for that. A huge problem for that bank. I should say it's also facing a lawsuit related to fraud allegations. So not in a great spot today. We saw declines there in Comerica's stock price as well. And finally, we've been talking a lot about politics, about the prospects for President Biden.
No, we haven't.
We have indeed, Carol. Former President Trump as well. DJT, of course, Donald Trump's Trump Media and Technology Group. He is the majority shareholder in that company. We saw declines there today, not attributable to what we heard or saw at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. In fact, having to do with the stock dilution, the fact that now there are going to be about $2.5 billion more shares available. That, of course, makes them worth less. Good for the former president, I should say. Maybe not good for other folks, but we saw DJT sinking today in trading on Wall Street, guys.
All right, let's take a look at what's going on in the Treasury space. Yields moving up, so price down, yields higher, the yield curve steepening as well. You see the 10-year yield moving up 3 basis points. That's the same for the 2-year as well, 4.23%. Carol, what was interesting to me, and this is not limited to Treasuries, of course, was the computer outage that we got overnight and this morning. It affected bond trading as well since the start of the New York session. This is according to Alice Anders, who is our U.S. rates and FX strategist over for our Markets Live blog. So it feels like no corner of the financial world was kind of untouched, and the business world was untouched by this massive computer outage.
Right. David and I talked a lot about the airline industry. I'm sure you guys did as well. Some headlines crossing. Delta says 1,200 flights canceled Friday, so extending the waiver that they're giving to customers, it sounds like, and says more delays, cancellations possible through the weekend. The FTA also was saying that, right, as well, that they anticipated that some of this could carry over into the weekend. So we'll be keeping an eye. We talked with Helene Becker over at Cowen, and she said they're treating this like a storm event.
So fascinating, like a winter storm. That's the kind of disruption that we've seen here.
I mean, the reality of this issue, too, is it's going to last people into the weekend, right? Because you had that many flights canceled, and then a number of those flights being rerouted, and a number of those flights being, redone for folks. But many of these people will be sitting in an airport for a day or two, or the airport hotel.
Yeah, not from the airport that they departed from, and not at the airport that they want to get to, but somewhere likely in between. At the same time, you have companies like FedEx and UPS warning of delivery delays from this outage. What's interesting to me, of course, is we had the Amazon Prime days earlier this week. So there are people who are buying things off Amazon, expecting them to get them today or tomorrow, and that's probably not going to happen now because of the delays triggered by this outage.
All right, let's get to what really matters. That unbelievably, companies are considering what cocoa butter alternatives. Is there any alternative to cocoa butter? I don't think so.
Wait, instead of chocolate, you mean? Instead of cocoa overall?
I guess so. I guess they're coming up because cocoa butter prices are, what, $28,000 a ton?
We've seen the fallout from really weather events in Africa where cocoa is grown, and this has kind of been building over and over. There have been warnings about how much chocolate prices are going to go up, and I just love this piece on the Bloomberg. Niall Sands, president of a commercial development innovation alternatives maker, AAK, saying chocolate quite often is an impulse purchase, stating the obvious there, but one I'm guilty of purchasing impulsively.
How many of you have walked out of the Bloomberg headquarters and to the right is this incredible chocolate store? I've done it. And eaten the chocolate before I'm
Taunting
even home.
you.
I mean, the cocoa butter prices at near $28,000 a ton is just eye-popping at the end of the day. And you can see why people are looking for alternatives. So I do agree with you. I don't know what that would be.
I think it's really fascinating, David. I'm glad you brought up that quote because there was another quote in that story that said that they don't want to make chocolate a luxury purchase. They want to keep chocolate an impulse purchase, something that everyone has access to. And, people can walk out the drugstore and be like, oh, wait, hey, I need that 100-gram bar right now.
In an environment and like just being serious, right? We talk about inflation, right? And companies trying to figure out with still some of the higher input costs, they've got to figure out alternatives. Otherwise, they've got to raise prices to consumers in an environment, right, David? We were talking about this earlier in the retail sector where consumers are looking for value.
Looking for value, looking for deals. We saw it in obviously dining and restaurants first. Now we're seeing it move over to other products, other parts of retail as well. buy 2 bars. If they're getting smaller, if there's shrinkflation, get 2 chocolate bars.
Like Twix.
Yes, that's right. Don't give it to a friend, have it yourself. Exactly.
All right, guys. What a week. What a day. We'll see what the weekend holds, but be safe, and we will see you again, same time, same place on Monday. Our cross-platform coverage, radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We call it the closing bell. We'll see you on Monday.